special guests. You can also leave a suggestion. Then, when you're done, rate the show. The hosts love your feedback, and others appreciate it. So next time you download a show, take a second to leave your thoughts and rate it.
Hello, this is Daniel Brinkley, and you are listening to Contact Talk Radio.
The views expressed on contacttalkradio.com are those of the guest hosts and callers, and not necessarily of this station, its management, or other advertisers.
This is contacttalkradio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Bing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Inspiration, brave action, and heartwarming journeys. This is what the Louise H. Reed Show brings you. Now, here's your host, Louise H. Reed.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me once again. This is episode 75 of the show. I'm your host, Louise H. Reed, with listeners in over 145 countries and millions of iTunes downloads and ongoing podcasts. As you know, I'm the fortunate host here live every Tuesday at this time to talk life and leadership with everyday people doing extraordinary things. People who take brave, bold action in pursuit of their dreams and goals and are here to share their journey to help you do the same in yours. There is nothing more valuable than time. So as a way to kick off the show, I always like to express my gratitude to you for sharing this time with me each and every week. And as a way of showing my gratitude, all who comment on a podcast episode with the hashtag LadyBossLoyalty are automatically entered into a draw to win exclusive Lady Boss Loyalty swag. So please comment away on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and good luck. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to today's guest. Today we have with us Omozua Isiramen.
Yes.
Omo, as I love to call her and others affectionately call her, is many things, is a certified life emotional mastery and executive John Mattone intelligent NeuroLeadership coach and brain trainer. She is the founder and director of a CWO through which she helps individuals and teams alike courageously become CEOs of their brains. She believes everyone can achieve success on their own terms by understanding the power of the greatest asset humans possess, the brain. One of her favorite mottos is, know thy brain, know thyself. She uses a neuroscience-based approach to empower and prepare clients' hearts and heads to take the journey from where they are to where they want to be by bravely accessing and optimizing their limitless brain potential. Her mission is one of helping people become brain-friendly leaders with clarity, confidence, and courage. Who does she work with? She works with and consults executives, corporate professionals, entrepreneurs, teams, and organizations all over the world to help them superfuel stress and navigate emotions for high performance, productivity, positive results through effective communication, and a life that feels good from within. There's so much more I can say about Omo. I'd like you to hear all from her herself. So Omo, I'd like to welcome you to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Louise. So good to be here, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I have been looking forward to this since the first time I read something of yours on LinkedIn. And that's what inspired me to reach out to you, and then we connected, and then the rest is history.
History indeed.
History indeed. You've got this way about you that glows and that really shines. It's both through your words as well as how you show up face to face. And so I can't wait to share this next hour with you and my listeners.
Absolutely.
So I read a lot of really awesome things about you. I want to jump into your bio a little bit before we rewind the clock, because cool stuff. But I want to know, what is a neuro-leadership coach and brain trainer?
Yeah, that's a big one. I have always been interested in humans. I've always been exposed to what I would say are fields of learning, and it's always been involved with humans. Some people are exposed to numbers, some people are exposed to business. For me, it was always humans, and I've been able to observe them. And then I started wondering, how do people, how come different people react to the same thing in different ways? And I think that somehow triggered my curiosity. When I was a teenager, I would always go to the airport just to observe people. I would watch how people react when they're leaving, the people that stay behind, do they cry? Why do some cry? Why are some just happy to say, okay, bye, see you soon? Mm-hmm. And somehow I got into the understanding that there's something we all possess, but we don't always use it the same way because we don't understand it in the same way. Some people have an awareness of it, some people don't. So why does the Dalai Lama do what he does? Why does Robin Sharma do what he does? People like Oprah Winfrey, what is it that they understand? And then I realized it's the brain. And that introduced me literally to neuroscience. I just thought there must be a way to learn more about it. And the more I studied, the more I understood that it is the struggle humans have has a lot to do with the unawareness they have of this asset. How does it work? Most of us walk through life thinking, I have no choice. Life, I'm a victim of life the way it is. And that's not true. There's a lot we can navigate. I don't like to use the word control. I'd rather say there's a lot we can navigate when we understand what we need to do in order to change the way we react or the way we respond to things. So leadership being, start with yourself. What you cannot see in yourself, you won't be able to see in someone else. I really believe that. If you're a manager, you can't understand the struggle someone you're managing is experiencing if you can't do the same for yourself. So that's what I also liked about leadership. And that's how it came together. So I decided, okay, do something on leadership and do something on neuroscience. And then I also had the opportunity to be trained by someone who was a really great teacher for emotional mastery, because I also realized that a lot of our reactions come from how we deal with what we feel.
Which is the brain, by the way, those listening.
Exactly, you know, and everything comes back, right? Everything comes back to that same point, that the brain is actually the main thing we use for a lot of things. So many people will say, but why, how can you be a brain trainer? How is that important? And then I think, well, if you make a decision, what do you use? Your brain. If you have to assess risk, your brain. If you have to negotiate with others, you need to understand that you're also talking to brains, and they also have thoughts, and the other brain has emotions, and they also interpret. And all of that just comes together. So NeuroLeadership is sort of learning how to lead, starting with yourself, and actually learning how to optimize and navigate this asset we have, the greatest asset ever, when you know what it does and how you can adapt to situations in a resourceful way, with compassion, with no evaluation, because what is the way it is, but how do you react to it, or how do you respond? You know, so that's literally it.
That is it, in a not so nutshell, but fascinating one. It's a big job. Leadership is a big job. And I'm in the process of writing a book. I think I mentioned to you, and I know you just have written a book, and I want to hear more about that in a few minutes. But I think that what I've experienced, certainly my 20 years of working in HR, people get into leadership because they think that's the next step. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. But they think that's the only next step. And there's a lot to leadership. That's a whole job. And we've, I think in the past, undervalued those skills and assets and habits that need to be learned when you step into that new role.
Exactly.
So let's rewind the clock a little bit. go back to little Omo.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to be when you grew up? Tell us about little 6 or 8-year-old Omo.
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting. I always wanted to be a writer or an actress when I was small. I don't know. I was not influenced by family or anything, because nobody was an actress in my family. Nobody was a writer. Everybody was either an accountant, business owner, something with numbers. Everything that I realized I didn't like, but I wasn't able to express that. So little Oma knew, well, she had to function. You couldn't be what the others were not. You had to follow somebody. And the easiest one I felt was be the good girl. Be the good girl, and you'll be like all the other women. You know, something happens. You're a good girl, and you wear your label of good girl, and people will not focus too much on you. They won't be distracted by you because you're not being different. And I learned that quite really at an early age. It also made me observe again family members who were trying to do something different and how that got them into trouble. Then I realized, okay, my behavior will influence the kind of reaction and treatment that I got. So I did learn very quickly how to behave and how to not behave for peace of mind. What felt safe. Yeah.
So when did you decide, or maybe it wasn't a decision, maybe it was over time, just walk us through how you made that transition then between being that good girl and then choosing your own path?
It was a painful one, I would say. Growing up, knowing, my mom used to be a nurse, and she worked night shifts. I remember crying when she would go off, and I would see how sad it made her. So this learning to put on a role, to play a role which was happy. I'm happy, and we don't allow room for any other emotion. And this went on for years. And then my mom would hold me in the morning and say, "Oh, you're such a good girl. You're so grown. How wonderful." So I thought, well, this is the way to be. And you grow up with that. You grow up not expressing emotions or feelings that are less desirable to people. You do what you think you have to do, which is show up, be strong. Don't let people know that you have worries or that things disturb you. Just be strong. And as I grew up into a young lady, I have to really say I became really exhausted. But, when you're young, in your early 20s, you just do what you do. You've got energy, you don't really think much about it. Right? You just think it's normal. But then as you reach your mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, there are these demands, things are supposed to be happening. And when those things don't happen, it becomes harder to hide. So it sort of, it feels heavier. The load, the way you present yourself, the way you show up feels heavier. My mom died when I was 19. And I remember being told, don't you dare cry. Don't cry, don't show emotions. And it was, many years before I cried that I had lost my mom, because I had to be strong, because we were never touched by anything bad happening. Your mom died, be strong. And you carry that on, and never mourning, never saying, I miss my mom. I miss the events that are going to take place where I know I can't say, Mom, look, this is what's happening. Do you want to be there? So I never thought about that. And somehow it's kept on being like that till I fell sick. I fell sick. It felt like a dark dungeon, and I actually fell very deep because I was just tired. It felt like this formula, the good girl formula. When is that beautiful outcome I had imagined all the years? When is it going to happen? What train had I not gotten on? I'd missed something. Why was nothing different? And I just started asking myself questions. They came automatically. I'm sick. I couldn't walk for 2 months because it was as if my body just got tired. It exhausted completely. And a lot of questions. I couldn't run anywhere. I couldn't escape. It was me, myself, and I. So either I was sleeping to avoid the pain, but then I started journaling and just saying, what else? What more? If it remains this way, how is it going to be? If you change, how is it going to be? And which one do you want to hold on to? Which train is it going to be? Because now it's sort of like these may be your last train, so to say. That's what I thought at that moment. And I just got on the one saying, I know the old formula hasn't gotten me anywhere. So let's be curious. Let's get on that train and let's just go with the flow for once in my life. And step by step, I let these labels go. Good girl. I thought it had to be in me. I didn't actually care anymore if it was expected of me. I said, well, mom is gone. My uncles and aunts are older, you know, and I had to live with who I was. I had to live with the temple that remained. And that's literally how I started getting exposed to each emotion I had denied myself feeling along the years. I could cry finally. I lost my mom. I could mourn. I could feel. And that was a totally new experience.
Wow.
When you can go through it and just say, wow, look at that. I felt and I did not die.
Yeah. Right.
I'm there. I'm still there. So, feelings don't actually break you. They actually heal you if you allow yourself to dwell in it without becoming one with it.
It's it's beautiful what you just said. Difficult to hear, because I can only imagine that myself. My mother lost her mother when she was 18, and I remember numerous times throughout my early adulthood, and more so when I had children, I would phone my mom crying and say, how did you do this without your mom? How did you do this without your mom? And so I say that only because that's all that I can imagine. And so the fact that you've been able to use your pain to create your purpose, I think is where magic really happens.
Yeah.
And that explains a lot of, you're clearly a joyful person. It comes out of your pores. It really, I see it. And it shines through your eyes. And I think this, I really appreciate you sharing that from.
Yeah. It's sort of becoming a woman, that in itself, a woman who didn't have a mom to call. I think that has sort of made me, it was hard. It is hard, because even now at this age, I still want to, but now I can really recall things that she used to do. And I think, that seems to be her. So I learned to say life, death, that's part of life. And it's only the power you give to what you want to focus on. So if I only focus on the fact that I lost my mom, my brother was 4 when she died. So he doesn't even remember much. And I remember when he was about 30, I sat down with him. I said, should I tell you about your mother? And we were eating suya. It's sort of a meat, fried, roasted meat that you eat in Nigeria. And he said, yeah. And I sat down there and I started talking about her. And for him, it was like, really? I do that too. And for me, it was so healing, because it helped me to remember things that I had even forgotten. And so becoming this woman, becoming an adult, sort of trying to say, Mom, wherever you are, I hope that I have become a good human being, the kind of good soul that you would want me to be, as best as I possibly can. Not saying perfect, but as best as I can possibly come. And that has been the gift that I'm always grateful for each day, to be candid.
And I think that when people can find the courage to look within themselves to find that too, that help. People are often searching for their purpose. And I think it's a good sort of noble goal to sort of have, but you don't just go out one day and decide, I'm going to find my purpose.
Exactly, because I don't think you'll find it like that.
You don't. It's not like you're going for a hike in the woods and, okay, here we go. I'm going to go for a hike and find my purpose. But the exploration, because the exploration is an inward one.
It's an inward one.
It's an inward one. And something that you said also reminded me of Brene Brown, who many of us love Brene Brown. And she talks about how when you numb the pain, you also numb the joy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And
you
just displayed that, or just shared that in your example perfectly, that when you're numbing the pain from the loss of your mother, which of course that is hard, and I think you can only sort of unpack that over a tremendous amount of time, because you can't handle all that pain all at once, but it took you away from being able to lean into the joy.
Yeah, you don't see anything else, and your brain can only take that much. It can only focus on a few number of things, and they were all interrelated. Loss, lack, no mother, loneliness, but all of that, it just takes all your mental energy, and you're not truly living with your eyes open, with discovering new things, because it's clouded by this weight, by this obstacle that you literally, which I put there myself till I released myself from it, because it's sort of like punishing yourself, almost feeling guilty that, okay, she's dead, did I do something wrong, why did that happen to me, all those kind of unresourceful questions. That's when you don't accept life as it is. There are those things that are as they are. And that's not the war we should spend our time and limited energy focusing on, because that doesn't take you anywhere. It just keeps you stuck, and you become an expert in this energy. I mean, anybody asks you, you can write a whole book about it. But what about the other aspects of life? Are you living? Are you surviving? Are you thriving? Are you becoming an expert in making excuses for not using the temple that God, universe, whatever it is for anyone listening? You've been given something. And I feel like the Japanese have temples, and they spend a lot of time cleaning and scrubbing and keeping everything clean, and it's not dirty, but you wonder, why do they do that? Why do they spend so much time polishing, cleaning something that's actually clean? And I think that's the way we should go about our body. That's the way we should go about our brain. It's not like, okay, today I was mindful, I drank my mindfulness tea, and I sat on my mindfulness pillow, and I have a mindfulness mattress, and I do that every Saturday. And then, so no, I should function. No, that's not how it works. When you drive a car, you don't just say, okay, I'm going to put it on and just let it. You also need to focus on, where are you going? Are you on the right road? Are you identifying anything in front of you? You need to pay attention. And it's the same thing with life. You go to work, you're meeting other people, so you need to also not only focus on yourself. How do they feel? Are you sensing anything? And you will sense something, because you're human, and there are mirror neurons that help you to sense. You sense when somebody's in a bad mood. So it becomes your responsibility, if you choose to say, I sense that this person is in distress. How can I help assist this person in the most non-evasive way? How can I communicate with this person?
I have a question for you around this. It is interesting too, on the heels of the guest I had, Melissa Hughes, last week, who is does all sorts of cool things, neuroscience. So we talked a little bit about this last week. What impact does stress, which is high in workplaces and lives in general, what impact does stress have on one's ability to look outside of themselves? So you were just talking about the mirror neurons, and I know about those. And what impact does stress have on all of that stuff and our ability to connect with others?
So stress is, to me, something that is there. I think that trying to live a stress-free life, we need stress sometimes for certain things. It's not stress in itself. It is actually how you react to stress that causes issues. So stress is something that releases the neurochemical cortisol. And if you have too much of that, and you're somebody who does not understand how to calm yourself down, like be aware that, okay, right now, I don't think my brain is not in an optimal state. So instead of forcing myself to manage the team, instead of forcing myself to be creative right now and make this important decision, you need to calm yourself down first. And what reacts to stress? I like to talk of my inner mind chihuahua, which is the amygdala, if I want to use the technical term. The inner mind chihuahua is just watching for threat or danger. Threat or danger. And if you don't know, if you're not mindful, if you don't know about this happening, you won't notice it. And then you're afraid. And while you're trying to survive, the brain is trying to keep you alive because it thinks, wow, there's a big dinosaur, something that's going to eat you. I always say, the question is it a lizard or a dinosaur? You need to breathe and really just ask yourself, if you have to do it out loud, by all means, is this really a dinosaur or is it just a lizard? And this way you can calm the brain down. So we are able to learn how to just calm the brain down, that it doesn't fall into this stress trap where it goes downward. So you're stressed, then you become fearful, and then you're anxious, and then you're worried, then you become angry, then you feel guilty, and the unresourceful emotions can continue. And in this state, how can you possibly function? Because then your reptilian brain, which is the oldest part of your brain, takes over because it just thinks, okay, I don't trust this vessel. Okay, I'm going to take the executive seat and I need to survive by all means possible. And sometimes those ways we try to do that aren't always the best, but it's not our fault. It's more a default. It's how we're wired. And so stress can affect us if we are not aware of the processes going on, if we don't take time to breathe and pause to actually assess the situation with compassion and to take a step back so that we don't fall into that stress, the unresourceful stress reactions. But if you're going to give a TED talk, do you feel stressed? Of course, you're human. And that's good also to know, how do I calm myself down, that I remain resourceful? I acknowledge the situation. This is a TED talk. There are people watching me, maybe online, directly in front of me. Breathe, calm yourself down and say, this is okay. I am going to see smiling people who are receptive to what I want to say. And you go on and you just be yourself. And that's also dealing with stress in a resourceful way. So that is what people need to learn. I think avoiding stress, that is sort of, wow, that's quite tough on the brain.
And it's just not possible.
It's not possible. It's not possible. It's the reaction that you can't avoid stress.
But I remember the first time I can't believe this, it was in 1997.
Long ago.
I know. I took a course on stress management. It was called Stress Management at the time. And I remember the example that was given to me at that time, which really stuck with me. I love roller coasters, but I know that there's a lot of people who don't love roller coasters. And so the example was, the roller coaster isn't stressful. The actual physical roller coaster is not the stress. It's the way that you react to the situation that is stress or not, or is excitement, or is paralyzing.
Yes.
I always thought that was an interesting way to look at it. I want to go back to what you were saying about when you were growing up and didn't have a mother. I'm asking only this out of curiosity because I know a lot of people either didn't have a close relationship with their parents, perhaps didn't have a parent for the same reason as you. But I do think we need role models to be looking up to. You mentioned who shaped you and helped influence you into the woman that you are today?
The women in my family they are strong, they're proud, they're confident, they're outspoken. So the women in my family, definitely, even though my mother wasn't like a direct companion on my journey, but even now, there are many things I do. And believe you me, I hear her voice quite clearly saying, because it's just the same thing when I talk to my aunt, I'm like, just like mom. Like I actually can visualize if she were alive, she would sound the same way. So they were always very, very appreciative of strong women. You know, I remember meeting Miriam Makeba at a concert, a strong African woman. I remember growing up with, even though I didn't pursue writing per se, but I grew up with books by Maya Angelou, strong women in Africa, different, just poetry and people who make a difference. Josephine Baker, you know, who adopted, I don't know, children from so many continents and stuff like that. So I grew up with those kind of people. And I think I've never been someone who's been like a girly girl. So I decided, okay, what do you want to be? And also because I had this label of be strong. So it just made sense to me to actually look at what strong women and even men, what they were doing. How did they present themselves? And it was a choice I made. And that was how I grew up, reading things by Stephen Biko, following Nelson Mandela, Miriam Makeba back in those days, Ken Siro, we were amazing. And just growing up like that inspired me to say, whatever you are, live, be human, and be strong, but be strong with compassion.
I like that.
Don't be strong for the wrong reasons.
We were talking about this before the show, our show started, before we hit go live, or whatever the button is that my producer hits. I like to think it's just a go live button. We were talking about the importance of words and the meaning that words have beyond the definition in the dictionary. And I'm bringing this up now because you're talking about strong, and that be strong but with compassion. That it would be really nice to see that the meaning of that word really evolve over time, so it's assumed that it's with compassion, because I do think that it's a very stoic sort of association with the word strong, as opposed to the compassionate side that you brought into it. And I want to maybe go back to the conversation you and I were having before we were on air. We were talking about entrepreneurship. And I really wanted to bring my listeners into this conversation because I thought it was kind of neat. And I know that we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening. So I'll maybe just take us back to how that conversation started. And I want you to jump in when you can remember what we were saying.
I can.
You're going to remember? Okay. Yeah, because I think we were talking about, we were catching up a tiny little bit. And I made a comment about life as an entrepreneur. Yes. And then you were saying waking up, there's a heaviness with the word entrepreneur.
Tell me
a little bit about what we were saying.
Exactly. So I am very, very careful about what we say. I have a good friend, Karen Van Hout, who always says, be careful what you wish for. You know, it's like if you're saying, I want a nice partner. Do you really want a nice partner? Nice? What does that mean? You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with saying, oh, the life of an entrepreneur, and not understanding that the brain takes instructions. If you say that's the way it is, you want to feel sad, it is going to help you magnify sadness, because that is the instruction you have given it. And so when we were talking about the life of an entrepreneur, I'm like, well, okay, you know, surely the life of an entrepreneur, but don't also forget to just be human. Because if you're only an entrepreneur, what happens is that you start to read everything about entrepreneurship. You start to talk only to entrepreneurs. You will only have that direction. And what can happen is that you miss the opportunity of seeing things that are not within that realm.
And I love it. It seems so obvious when you said it, because it's like once you decide to become, okay, I'm going to become a runner. I'm going to start running, or I'm going to do CrossFit. You all of a sudden, you know, you're joining all the running groups, or you're going to CrossFit, and who you have in your life are runners and CrossFit people.
Exactly.
And it's I think of horses who've got those, they're not called blinders. Maybe they are called blinders. The things that keep the horse looking straight.
Yeah, exactly.
And for the horses who are pulling a carriage, I mean, it's a good thing when you're a passenger, but not so good when you're the horse wanting to have a really fulfilling, enriched life.
Exactly.
And so don't be the horse with the blinders. And so
exactly, just going in one direction all the time. There's nothing bad about being an entrepreneur, but I think there's this talk of hustle, 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 and just keep on and And I'm just thinking, like, you have got a brain, a good friend that is always listening, and it's like, I don't trust what this vessel, this human within who I am, is saying. So I'm going to take control, because everything that this hustle, what does that mean? What does it trigger in you? Does it trigger calm, or does it trigger run around, have your mobile phone in your hand and your tablet somewhere there and a bag, and just really walk around and show people, oh my God, look at how busy and how I'm hustling. And I'm just seeing this stress, we just talked about stress. And I don't know if that is it the essence? Of course, you can do that if that sits well with you. But I'm just thinking, do we have to do anything?
If that is your approach, call me in 10 years and let me know how it worked.
How it worked. I'd like to know. It's just, let's make a choice. There's a power of choice in the words we use, and the power we give the words over how we operate and how we see ourselves. When I wake up in the morning, I'm just brushing my teeth. Okay, I'm not thinking like, oh God, I'm brushing the teeth of an entrepreneur. I'm just a Omozua. Okay, I'm a Omozua, and I take the calm and I make sure I focus on what I'm doing, because that is important. And then I make my coffee or my tea, and that is important. It's not an entrepreneur making tea. So I try not to identify, because you see, in September was a very tough month, in the sense that I woke up one day with what I thought was a cramp in my leg. Turned out the next day, this so-called cramp was still there. I mean, the doctors are like, how are you alive? What kind of cramp lasts a whole day? So I had a blood clot, and I was actually not breathing very well for 3 weeks prior to this cramp. And I already had a pulmonary embolism. And then another thing was I had no energy. And only when I got admitted did I find out that I am, chronically anemic. So you see, what this forced, but I'm so grateful for this forced health holiday I went on, wellness break, was that I wasn't hustling, because I was in the hospital. I had a swollen foot. I was getting all these meds. I was not allowed to sit up. I had to lie down, because they were afraid that the emboli would move and I'd have a stroke or just even die. They said they don't even know how I'm alive. They had to give me 3 liters of blood before they could even start treating my emboli. And you know what that taught me? Look at me, I'm here, I'm sitting, but I'm very appreciative of this lesson, a big lesson that showed me how close I was to not being any more present. If I continued to think I had to hustle, I had to do, I had to be present everywhere, I have to be networking, if not you have to feel guilty and bad, and you have to feel like a failure. I had to, the 3 weeks changed my life.
Wow.
It made me stop. It made me understand, Omo, you don't only stop on Saturday or Sunday. You have to stop every day. You have to take your time. You have to maybe focus on things. You have to be grateful. You have to take care of your body. Again, what do the monks do? They polish, they clean, and sort of not waiting till it's too late. Just like not waiting till it's too late to understand that your brain is involved in everything you do. Don't wait till it's too late, because people spend a lot of time checking, what are the new features of this mobile phone? If you have the time to do that, and this new camera for your vlog, if you have the time to learn that, then
or watch funny cat videos.
Exactly. Then you also have the time to learn about the asset you have in your head, so that you can enhance your life, but also that of others. And think of the ripple effect. Each one of us is a brain sending out a ripple effect into the world. There's a part of it that you see, and there's a part you don't see. And that is your responsibility. So if you want to feel guilty about something, spend your mental energy thinking, what ripple effect do I want to send out as I have been given yet another day, another chance, another opportunity? And spend your mental energy on that than spending your mental energy on hustling till you break down. September was a good teacher. I'm very thankful. Every day, people are like, it's amazing how you were just almost dying, and all of a sudden, look at you, you're sitting, you're alive. But right now, I'm meditating every day. I journal every day. I don't take gratitude for granted. I keep myself hydrated. I take care of myself. I plan when are my social moments. I take care of my limbic brain. Mm-hmm. What does it need? It needs some social time. So have I got that integrated in my week?
I think everything that you just said there, those who are listening to the recording, which obviously is later than right now, now's live, mm-hmm. I want them to go back and listen to that rewind the last 30 seconds and listen to what you just said again. And I challenge listeners to choose one of those things to put into their calendars for a month. Just choose one. Yeah. And then the next month, choose another one to add to it.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It pains me to see so many people living the hustling life, which leads to ill health, yes, divorce, or unhappy relationships.
Yes.
Loss of connection.
Ineffective communication, the not having the ability to just be with someone, but also not having the ability to be with yourself.
Yes. You might have the bank account. So there's the checkbox for that. But then everything else that makes us
everything human. Else. Oh yeah. But your reptilian brain, your primitive brain, it doesn't care if you've got millions in your bank account. It doesn't care about the number. If it doesn't feel, if you're sad and if you're just releasing cortisol and you're exposed to these to stress and you're just reactive and you're not in control, not inwardly, not outwardly, it feels like dying. It really feels as if you're becoming invisible. Parts of you are just evaporating. And it's sort of, how do you go through life like that? How do you go through life saying, I must do this thing because it is expected of me? And I know I can feel my heart dying, but I have to do what I have to do. You can do things, but instead of going to look for purpose, sort of start one step at a time. The brain also doesn't like things that seem too large to achieve. A chunk at a time.
Tiny chunk, friends. It's like a crumb. It's that little.
Yeah.
That little a thing that's almost so little, it's near impossible to not be able to achieve it. That's how little.
There, you don't need to do more. I'm always happy, now every morning I wake up and I'm like, I'm actually smiling and saying, oh, you can't believe it. It just took September. I just refer to that period as September. It took September for you to actually get on your, indoor bicycle. And now I started with 10 minutes and now I'm like 30 minutes, no problem. And the other day I did 45 minutes and I was like, fantastic. I just put on this, this on my Spotify, you've got this indoor cycling best songs and I'm just rocking. And I think, wow, it took September and the teachings and the lessons, which are still opening themselves up to me. What happened when I was there and I could not walk, when I had to lie down and do everything in bed. What went through my head? How did that make me feel? How did it make me reflect on the future and how I wanted every next day if I were given it? And thank God I was. I realized, Omo, it is in your hands. It is in your hands. What you focus on. If you tell yourself you've got to hustle and you give hustle a word, just like I'm an entrepreneur or I'm an employee, or yes, you can be an employee. There is nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't mean because you're an entrepreneur that you're superior. We are humans at the end of the day, and I think that should be the focus, because that's where the flow and the energy is needed. At the end of the day, you want to be productive and you want to see a result of what you're doing, but with compassion.
So I know you mentioned it already. I'm looking for you to maybe go back to what it was you were saying a few minutes ago. So if someone is identifying with this hustler mentality, this strong identification as an entrepreneur above and beyond anything else, what would you recommend as the first thing for them to consider doing? Because we've talked about all sorts of things that I think are really awesome, and I hope that there are some gems that some people have already taken away. But for someone who's already in that overwhelming hustler mindset,
yeah,
where would you suggest they start?
I know I shouldn't say that, but I'm a brain trainer. So what helped me was to understand what is going on in my brain and what drives my behavior. And I think that, you know, if saying I'm an entrepreneur, or some people say I'm a serial entrepreneur, or I'm a successful employee, or whatever it is you call yourself, what does that mean? It means that you absolutely love status. And what does status mean? It means that you love a certain neurochemical which enables you to have that sense of status. Serotonin. You need serotonin. So there are other ways to actually get trigger the release of serotonin without breaking yourself by giving one word such power over you. Does that make sense? So if calling yourself an entrepreneur makes you feel good, it releases that thing and it makes you feel fulfilled, I would say step back a little bit and understand that you can get that one thing you need in different ways. There's not just one way. Being one thing is one perspective, but there are other ways to release the same feeling without the same chemical and still thriving and living and feeling good from within without putting too much power on one thing. Because what if you can't be an entrepreneur one day? What are you then? And that is where that's why this reflection is so important. One day you may wake up, I could have woken up with a stroke, and then I would be focusing on that. So if you can't be one thing, be open to the fact that you can be everything, but you don't have to be any particular thing. And because that's hard. Too much.
And that is a hard thing to wrap your head around. I know I was listening recently to an Eckhart Tolle podcast with Oprah. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the I am concept. And that's just what you were just saying reminded me of that. And that's talk about brain gym. Talk about some sort of mental gymnastics to get your head and your heart around what that means. But it's really, really valuable. And I'd like to echo what you said and share with the listeners that the power in going inwards, being curious. Curiosity is something that you mentioned at the very beginning of our interview, the curiosity in people. Yes. I think be curious with yourself. It sounds like for you as well, Omo, for so many years looked for the answers outside of myself, whether it was the degree, whether it was the boy who became the husband, whether it was the house, whether it was climbing the corporate ladder, whether it was getting the experience under my belt or the feedback from others, all of that, those are good things. There's nothing wrong with those things.
No, nothing wrong. Oh, not at all.
But in absence of that, the connection to yourself, which I lost totally along the way, it's meaningless.
Yes, it feels so strenuous. It's like going shopping and buying all these bags, and that feels good. Why? Because there is a chemical that is released. Dopamine is the reward. But what happens truly? You come home with all your bags and you're exhausted. And you put them in a corner, and maybe if you're really, really still excited, you keep on shopping till you get to your car, literally, so that you keep this dopamine, flowing. Then you get home, and either you're so tired that you just put the bags down, and you might not even end up opening those bags till 2-3 days later, because it's just like, you know what's in there. It's not fascinating anymore. Okay, you may have a friend who say, "Oh, what did you buy?" And then you open them, and then there's a dopamine rush again. But then, yeah, it's just that. So you can collect the titles, you can collect the labels, you can collect the whatever. But what is it that really lasts, that is not temporary, is when you just live from within, rather than living from the labels and whatever you can stick yourself with or clothe yourself in, or, you know, that is long lasting. You don't want the short-lived buzz. You want the feeling good, feeling a sense of well-being. And that is not tangible. It just isn't. That if it were tangible, then millionaires should be absolutely happy every day. They should be singing the Pharrell Williams song, "I'm so happy, da 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 da," but they don't, because
they're not necessarily.
Because they're not, because this accumulation does not, external accumulation it's temporary. What we want to thrive and to go beyond just surviving and waiting for the applaud has to come from within. And it means do the deep work. We need to appreciate deep work. Surface level living, okay. But surface level living will never allow you to feel I thrive from within on any given day. With intention, if I sit down and I just want to feel gratitude, you can only do that if you go beyond the obvious, if you go beyond surface level existence.
Have you ever been a singer?
Oh, I used to be in a choir, but I've never.
That's a singer, yeah. There's so many things that you've said throughout this interview, Omo, that I feel like it's said very poetically. So you could be standing up and presenting a poem, but you also I feel like you should be breaking out into song. Anyway, I just had to ask that. We have just a few minutes left, Omo. There's a couple things I want to say. I want you to tell me, like, plug your book. You just wrote a book, so tell us about that and how people can get in touch with you and get their hands on the book.
The book is available on Amazon. The book was a project of about 22 authors coming together. So my story within the book is called The Game Changer Life Anthology. And my story in the book is an apology to my bleeding heart, stepping up into courage. And it literally is sort of a little bit of what I have said about feeling and going through the emotions and noticing that feeling and touching your emotions won't break you. It would make you a stronger person. It would make you a prouder person that you can look in the mirror and feel, I feel me. I like you. I know you. Sorry that it took me a while, but I embrace you right now. I want to be whole again. Remember all parts of yourself. So that's what the story is about. And I can be found on my website, www.omozua.com, or also on LinkedIn, where I share tips and values about the brain. And yes, reach out to me. I'm always very, very happy to share, learn, and grow with other humans.
Thank you, my dear. Those notes or those coordinates are in the show notes for those who are catching this in replay via podcast. Omo, my dear, thank you very much for sharing this space and time with me and my listeners today. You are just a joy.
Thank you so much, Louise. I really, really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. And of course, as always, I want to thank all of you as well, my loyal listeners, and remind you that information about my radio show and my guests can be found at louisehreed.com. Also, as always, a big shout out to my producer, Cameron Seal at Contact Talk Radio Network. And finally, in closing, I'd like to leave you with a few wise words we heard from Omo today. She said, live from within, be human, be strong with compassion. So until next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm Louise H. Reed, Wishing all of you a strong, compassionate day. Goodbye, my friends.
Bye-bye.